Good evening, guys. Hope your day went well. Welcome to today's session. We already have your instructor on the call. I hope you're ready to learn. If you're here, please go ahead and drop a message on Discord or WhatsApp so that others can join in this class. Hi, Bobby. Good evening. Welcome to today's session.
Hi, Amaka. Good evening.
All right. Good evening. So I think if you're ready to go, let me know. I think the floor is all yours. I have nothing to say for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Amaka. Hi, everyone. I hope we've been having a very lovely day. Um, on today's class, we would be talking about, or we'll be getting introduced to RESTful APIs. And as a run through of what we'll be looking at HTTP. We'll also be talking about HTTP verbs or methods. We'll also be talking about HTTP status codes. We would also look into what is the RESTful API itself. We'll get introduced to what REST is. We'll talk about JSON. Then we'll get started with an introductory aspect of Express.js. All right. Not to waste too much time, I would be introducing us to basic concepts that we are going to be looking into today. The first thing we'll be talking about is HTTP. First off, yeah, HTTP is an acronym. Means it's basically a short form of a longer descriptive or a more descriptive name, and that is the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Well, just in case you might be wondering what that is, it is a fundamental protocol that is used for transferring data on the internet. So, how web applications or websites communicate with servers and send information across each other is using this particular protocol. It makes it possible for uh, client softwares to communicate with servers and those servers to respond. It is basically a guiding set of rules that helps in ensuring that that communication is effective, is secured, and you know basically does not cause errors at any point in time. You know, let's talk about the client server model just a little, just to give a brush on that. So HTTP operates on specifically on client server based models. Yeah, the client, which is typically your web browser, obviously, your client software always runs on your web browser. Means your web pages, the user, your front end application. It runs from your browser, and yeah, it sends requests from within that application with payloads, with data, and it sends it to the server, which is whichever computer that is hosting your web application, or in this case, your back end. You see, then the server would process it, do a couple of actions on it, and then after doing those processings, it then sends back a response back to the web application. And then the web application, which is, talking about the web application, I'm talking of your front end now in this case. It picks up whatever response comes from the server, and then it makes do with whatever thing it wants, whether it is displaying it on your web page, whether it is using it as a notification, whether it's using it to, whether it's retrieving data from your database and displaying it for the users to see, whatever the case may be. But what you need to take from this is that HTTP, which is your hypertext uh, transfer protocol, is basically the guideline, the set of rules, the set of programs, and you know the governing factor that helps you communicate from your client side to the server side. This is it's a standard on the World Wide Web. So let's talk a little bit about the request response life cycle, because coming into the talking about RESTful APIs and talking about backend applications and server applications, you will be doing a lot of request and response. So you need to have like a basic overview and understanding of what that life cycle is like. So the interaction between your client and server follows this specific life cycle called the request and response life cycle. Uh, Obviously, from the words that are being used to describe this process, there is request and response. It basically makes you understand that there is obviously going to be one computer requesting for a specific resource, and the other computer on the other end is going to process that request and obviously respond with something, which is whatsoever thing that the requesting machine is asking for. All right, so the request is basically the client from the client's end. So the client would initiate a communication by sending that HTTP request to the server. We'll look more into the types of requests that can be sent and how they are sent as we go forward. But that request contains information about the resource that the client wants to access. You understand? Such as it could be a web page, it could be an image, it could be data from the database, it could be even a stream, whatsoever. But what you need to understand is that the website or the client software is going to make a request for data. That is the whole point in the first place for the communication, exchange of data. So the client software is the one in position to make that request. And when it does make that request, the next thing that happens in this cycle is the response. So when the server receives the request, the server would process it and then send back another response HTTP, right? Now the response includes the requested resource, that is whatsoever resource that the client must have asked for, along with metadata. Now, I don't know if we know what metadata. So when you have what you call your main data and a metadata, metadata is usually sort of like extra data that's more like gives a better description of whatever data you are originally talking about or requesting. So that's what metadata is. So it sends back the data you are looking for, and a metadata, a descriptive data. In this case, the kind of metadata that the response is going to come with is things like status code, headers, cookies, and all of that. Basically, descriptive data that is describing the data, or describing uh, maybe other rule sets that are based upon the server, or other guidelines that is going to help future communications between the client side and the server side. So far we've talked about, first of all, the client server model and the request and response cycle. These are very two key things that you would always need to remember whenever you are working within the RESTful API space. Moving forward, um, you must have also heard about the URL. URL is Uniform Resource Locator, but then there's something also called a URI. I wouldn't want to talk. Okay, let's just go ahead. I would throw a little bit of light on both of them as needed for this particular explanation. Now, the URI is another very key thing that you need to remember when talking about HTTP as a whole and the RESTful API. What's this URI? What we are familiar with normally is the URL, which is the locator, the uniform resource locator, is used to request. It's also known as URL. Sorry about that. It's used to request for specific locations of resources on the web. So when you need to locate a specific data set, you need to have like a description and address of where it is located on the web. And that is why the URL or the URI is important to us. It is how we are able to tell our clients, or it is how our client softwares are able to request, for those datas. Without that, it will not be able to, should I say, identify a proper location where to find it. It will just be basically like shouting straight into the air a person's name without, properly channeling your direction to where to find the person. There is every possibility that no one is going to answer you if you are doing that. So using a URL or URI you're able to identify the specific location where whatsoever data set you are looking for is located. Um, there is a scheme for your URL or URI. It usually starts with the HTTP followed by the colon with double slash. Uh, for a secured connection, you would usually notice S in front of it.
Bob, hello, Bobby. Can you hear me?
Amaka, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can't see your screen. Are you sharing your screen?
Oh, so sorry about that. You've not been seeing it all this while.
No.
Okay, give me a moment. Let me fix that.
Ah.
Still nothing yet. Amaka, are you there?
Um, can you hear me? Yes, I'm here. I can't see your screen yet.
Okay, give me a moment.
Okay. Okay, hi Bobby. I can see your screen now. Hello, Bobby. Can you hear me?
Yeah, is that better now? Amaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's better.
Oh, okay. So sorry about that initial delay. All right. Where were we? Hello, can you still hear me, Amaka?
Yes, I can. I think Bobby, you can go ahead.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Let me just get back to where I stopped, and I would continue. So, anyways, the platform that you're seeing right now on my screen is the the MDN Docs. It's a platform by Mozilla where you'd get most information about web-based technology in general. It's a good reference tool for you to always, go to find some information. Um, Now, as a dev, as a full stack engineer, you are not an encyclopedia, so you would obviously not have everything stored up in your head. So you could always make reference to platforms like this. They have good documentations, and you can use that as a reference to guide you through. All right. So let's get to it. Uh, so talking about HTTP messages, I'm having issues here with something. All right, give me a moment. Let me fix something up quickly before I share my screen again.
Hello, Bobby. Can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Hello.
Hello, I can
Okay.
hear you, Bobby.
All right. So let's move on to the HTTP requests. Uh, oh. So the HTTP request, their message is basically sent by the client to initiate any action on the server, mostly to retrieve some sort of information or data from the server side. Yeah, and there are various kind of methods that are used to get that information from the server. There are requests such as the GET request, there is the POST, there is the PUT. These are the more popular ones. Like you could see over here, they are usually they are the more popular ones, most frequently used ones, the ones you are more likely to use when you are creating some sort of communication or the other. So I'm having issues getting to one of my screens here. I don't know if it's because I'm sharing. Give me a moment again. Okay. Sorry for that delay. So I think I was initially explaining the HTTP URLs and URIs before I noticed my screen wasn't coming up. My setup is a bit messy here. I've not used it in a while, so I'm having issues with some certain things. So, talking about the URI, I've said that that is sort of like the address you use in getting those information. Now, the next thing we're supposed to talk about is the methods. Yeah, and I said some of the more popular methods are the get, the post, the put, the delete, and the head. Now, the get just basically retrieves data from the server. That's the main request. That's mainly what it does. The post is used to both submit data and oftentimes this the kind of data it submits are basically forms. So it is basically used to post form data. The put is something used in updating, or replacing existing data, and delete helps you remove or basically delete, while the head is used to retrieve metadata about the resources that you're fetching from uh, the server or itself. Now let's talk a bit about headers. So HTTP headers are the additional information that are sent along with your requests. They are like the data that when you send for a data, they are sort of like the extra information that helps describe, whatever protocols that are in play, the metadata, that is basically where the information is also stored, those extra information that describes them. So that's the purpose of the header. So it carries information such as the content type, the length of the content, the catching directives. If there are authentication credentials, it might carry that, and and many more like that. See, both the client and server, they include headers in their request in order for them to be able to convey, the proper message to both the client side and the server side. The information is used by both your clients, like your browser, and it's used like by your server, to describe or make do with some certain data that it gets from the respective places that they're coming from. Uh, an overview also that we'll be looking at is status codes. Status codes are basically special kinds of codes that are sent along with your request to convey specific kind of information. They are usually numbers, 3 digits numbers most of them, and they are categorized into five. They I don't know. Is my screen moving? Hello? Oh, I don't think it's moving. Amaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Has
No,
my
it's
screen
not
been
moving.
moving? It's scrolling, right? Oh, okay. I have to do the sharing
Mm,
process again.
okay.
All right. I
Okay,
am
can see
back.
your screen now.
All right, and it's moving, right? Okay. So we talked about the header just now, and how it conveys certain kind of data that helps describe the the data that is being sent either from the client or the server. Yeah. So this is an example of some kind of the data that I received. This is what it looks like. This is the syntax. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the HTTP methods. So one of them is the connect method. The HTTP connect method, it starts two-way communications with the request resource. It can be used to open a tunnel. And a tunnel is basically a connection between your client and your server. It's sort of like the passageway that would connect both ends and basically cause an uninterrupted communication between both ends. That's what the basic purpose of a tunnel is like. This is what the syntax looks like. This is what the send syntax looks like. It connects to a specific URL. It gives you a status code, and then it tells you the version of HTTP that it's working with. And like that, the connection is set up. From this documentation, you could see the kind of browsers that support this. Basically, every kind of browser supports it that is popularly known to you. You could see beneath them, you can see yes, they are all accepted. Basically, the check mark proves that they are accepted and they are usable. Yeah. Then we also have the delete method. The delete method is, like I said, used to delete specific resources from the server, and you could see the syntax as well. The syntax is basically a delete with a forward slash, the file name, which is this is basically the URI in this case. It's telling you the endpoint and the file that it's supposed to locate in the endpoints there, and the HTTP version. So when the request is sent, it will tell you where the host is, which is a mockexample.com website, and then it does that. Then there's a response that's given based on, we talked about the request response, and the server ends up responding with a specific status code. We'll look more into the status code in a short while. And when the status code returns, it's your client software can now confirm to your user by displaying that it has deleted successfully. The documentation also gives us all the supporting browsers that could work with this, and almost every of your browsers work with this. They support the HTTP 1.1 version. Then we also have the GET request. So GET request is basically used most times to request for certain resources from the server. It basically just sends a request to the server, and how it encodes that, it places it within your URL, requesting for whatever resource that is most important to it. Most times when you want to get like a blog, go through a blogging site and get some information, most times what it sends is a get request for. By the time you click the heading, it just requests for that data, and it basically displays it for you on your client end. We also have the head. So the HTTP head method requests the headers. So remember how we said the header contains, metadata and specific information that describes other payloads or other data within it. It requests for the metadata. Maybe there are specific information you want to know, maybe like the length of the document and all of that. You could use the head method to make request of such a thing, you know, you know, and it helps you retrieve that information. This is also a basic syntax for it. It's basically use the head method and the index. There's I would skip some of all this because they are not used. I want to go straight to post. They are not that they are not used, but they are not regular. They are not things that you come in contact with on a daily basis or on a regular basis. So I'm going to the post, which is something that is more frequently used most times. Most of all your forms, the way they make the requests for, the way they submit the forms are using this post request. When you try to do a login, for instance, when you are authenticating a user, the way it sends the information, that's your username and your password, is via the post method. So the post method sends data to the server, and this type of data, the type of the body of the request is indicated by the content type header. All right. The difference between the put and the post, of which we'll be looking at very shortly, is the put is idempotent. That is, it calls it once or several times successively, and it has the same effect. Where successive identical posts may have additional effects like passing an order several times. Basically, your post request just sends it, while the put is able to send it multiple times. It is able to send it successively multiple times. So a post request is basically sent most times from a HTTP form, typically, and its result is a change in or in on the server, basically, because it sends a specific kind of data that is supposed to be either processed or worked on the server side. Yeah. Let's look at what the syntax looks like. It's basically post to its specific endpoint, and this is what it looks like basically from your this thing header. Amaka, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Bobby. Continue.
All right, thank you. So we'll be looking at the RESTful API. Okay, give me a moment. Let's also take about a look at what the put method is like and how the syntax looks like. So the HTTP put request method creates a new resource or replaces it a representation of the target resource with the request payload. So basically, what it's saying is it takes a particular data set and replaces it with or places it into a specific endpoint on the server. That's basically what its job is for, and this is what the syntax looks like. So put new HTML, and this is the HTTP version, and this is what it looks like. So you are placing basically like a new file. This would make more sense later when you are putting it practically in ground of what it is supposed to be like. I think my network is seriously misbehaving. Let me share again. Amaka, can you see my screen? Can you hear me, Amaka?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see your screen.
Okay, I'm having some serious lag here. All right, let's talk about some of the response codes. We have If you can see my screen properly, let me see if I can zoom in a little. So you could see to the right, to the left of my screen, you could see some response codes, and there are different descriptions, or there are different names. Some of the popular ones you would normally see is the 200, which shows that your request was successful and everything came out okay. Some of them is you. Another one you would see is maybe when you want to create something on, you are sending a request that basically just create something, and you need it's supposed to come back with a response that shows that that has been successfully created. You would see something like the 201 response. You see there's a 202. There's another popular one that pretty sure you see all the time. 500, which is usually internal server error. When you have specific error on the server side, maybe there's a problem or a bug on your server. There are errors on on some of the lines of code you've written, and it has basically shut down everything on the server, or something is basically not functioning well. Maybe when you make a HTTP request to the server, it comes back with a 500 error. That's when you see these kind of things. There is also another popular one that you would usually see, which is the 400 error. Um, the 400 error usually tells you it's a bad request. That is mostly from the client side. It's when probably you're not using the proper parameters for your request, and then it's going to return that particular information. Let's see a little bit about it. So the hypertext, the 400 bad request response status code indicates that the server cannot or will not process the request due to something that is perceived to be a client error. So, like I said, it is something that is prominent from the client end. It could be that you're not sending in the proper parameters for the server to be able to process. So, when it sees such a request, it's going to respond with a 400 bad request, telling you that you should check your request properly. You would see things like the 401 unauthorized, when maybe a client that is not authorized to access a certain resource on the server is trying to access it. It's going to come back with such an error that indicates that maybe there's something lacking, that or an authentication that has not been done, or a validation that has not been completed on that particular user. So you are not basically not using valid authentication credentials to request that resource. So it comes back with a 401 error. Then there's also a forbidden. Probably you are trying to access something that is not uh, is also not authorized to you, something that is not probably public or allowed to be accessed by the public, or so let's just read what it says here. So the status code indicates that the server understands the request but refuses to authorize it. Basically, what that means is whatever you are trying to request, it is not something that is publicly available. It's not something that you are supposed to have access to generally. So whereas the 401 means you are probably not authenticated to access it. It is available to be accessed, but you are not authenticated to access it. But in the case of the 403 that is forbidden, it means that resource is not available to be accessed at all. You would see valid places where all of this is used most times. There's also another very popular one, the request timeouts. Uh, the 403 request timeout response status code means that the server would like to shut down this unused connection. It is sent on an ideal connection by some servers, even without a previous request by the client. So when you are trying to access a request, or maybe you requested for anything and it's taking too long to respond, generally the connection becomes idle. It enters an idle state, means it's basically not doing anything at that point in time. So the server now tells you that, okay, since probably this is not working well, we should probably just end our connection, since there is no active communication going between two of us at this point in time. You can notice that maybe when you are having bad network connection sometimes, it means the initial connection probably was made successfully, but there is a delay in further communication from maybe one end or the other. So after a long wait for that response, or maybe it's taking too long to process something, so and it's not able to respond within the stipulated time assigned to that particular activity, it's going to send you a request timeout. You understand? um I hope we are following. I hope my network is not still misbehaving. Amaka, can you hear me? Hello, Amaka, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Your network is very nice. Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So basically, there are many more requests that are like this, and over time, this resource is very much available for you to access. I probably should share that this link so that you could explore it and get some information here over time. Amaka, maybe you could help me paste it on the general chat or on the comments. Give me a moment.
All right.
Have you seen it? Maybe you could help me share it with everyone.
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay, I didn't get you before. You were breaking up. Oh.
I said I've seen it. Can you
All
hear
right.
me?
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I got that now. Okay. So moving on to the next thing, we would be looking at rest. Give me a moment. Let me share the screen for that. I've shared my screen. I don't know if it's showing yet. Okay, I believe that is
I can see
up
your
and
screen,
running
Bobby.
now.
I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Looking at REST, REST is also an acronym. It's called Representational State Transfer. All right. So basically, what does REST have to do anything with anything related to the TTP? Let's just go through this documentation quickly so that we could have a good idea. So it refers to a group of software architecture design constraints that bring about efficient, reliable, and scalable distributed system. So what's the idea of a distributed system? Is basically systems that are spread across different nodes, but that are in communication with each other. So basically, like a client server communication, basically the World Wide Web, basically the internet at large. So REST is a set of constraints that helps guide and bring about efficient and reliable and scalable distributed system. So it makes it easy for you to have multiple systems communicating with each other efficiently. And it also makes it possible for you to communicate at scale. You understand? So the basic idea is that the basic idea of REST is that a resource, maybe a document, example, is transferred via well-recognized language agnostics and reliable standardized client-server interaction. Services are deemed restful when they adhere to these constraints. So, just to give you an insight of what this statement means here, you are going to term a specific API restful if it adheres to the set of language agnostics, basically the guidelines that are within the restful description, you know, or constraints, design constraints. It means the RESTful API has been designed in a specific way. And if you design your client server communication to meet this standard, then you are using a RESTful, architecture. You know, so HTTP APIs in general are sometimes referred to as RESTful APIs or RESTful services, basically because some of the constraints that are being used in these client server communications today are commonly RESTful in nature. So it's usually mistaken for exactly just that, but there are obviously other kinds of architectures out there. There's the SOAP. There are a lot. There are a lot of other architectures out there. But RESTful APIs or a REST-based API is one that obeys a set of constraints that would see in a short while. So, and you also need to know that they don't have to obey to every single one of the RESTful constraints. There are specific ones that are most important for them for it to meet up with. So I just wanted to show you this documentation from this platform so that you could get an idea of it. So let's take a look at the architecture of the RESTful architecture. All right, the link that I sent you, you could easily just go and search for REST, and you'll be able to access most of all of this information on the platform. So let's look a little bit at what the RESTful architecture looks like. Um, so this is an example of what a REST service looks like. I hope my screen is bold enough. This figure describes it. So we have a service provider, we have a service consumer, we have a request link, which basically would adhere to every of the HTTP request, and then we have a response. Now, the idea of RESTful APIs is to properly organize data sets and arrange them to specific endpoints so that they are easy to locate. So that is where this becomes very important. This aspect of the RESTful API becomes important. The address, there are endpoints attached to it that help you define where exactly to find your request. And then when that is done, there's a response that's given that contains whatever request that you have put out for. So that's the basic idea around the RESTful API. We could also, get further information from the wiki about it. I mean, this is always a good resource to go to get more details or more in-depth look about different architectures or ideas. You could see the architectural properties here on Wikipedia. It says the REST architectural style is designed for network-based applications, specifically client-server applications like we talked about. But more than that, it is designed for internet scale usage. We've also talked about that. We are talking about distributed system, multiple systems communicating with each other, and accessing multiple resources on specific server. So the coupling between the user agent, which is the client, and the origin server must be as loose as possible to facilitate large scale adoption. So the idea is making the client and server as loosely coupled as possible. Uh, this is where you have like the idea of a microservice over a monolithic service, where everything is both the service that is being requested and the client itself is working between the same application frame. But with a platform like RESTful API that helps you define resource locations properly via endpoints and allows you to have your resources located literally anywhere on the internet and gives you an easy convention, an easy convention to be able to locate those things and get them via either your XML or JSON response. It makes it very very interesting to use. It becomes a very interesting application. You could see like there's basically a diagram here that is trying to describe all that. I don't know if it's visible enough, but from what you see here, there's an application here, there's a user agent, there's a representation, there's the message, there's the resource that is being looked for, there's the URI, there's the entity, which is like your data, and then there's the origin, which is the server where it's located. So all these things come together to make up what we know as the RESTful API. Okay, haven't spoken about this foundational concepts. I believe the next important thing is getting into Express, and we'll be going to their documentation shortly. Now, there's also something that is very key to the RESTful API, and that is the JSON data. I believe we should quickly look at that before we go into uh, the Express.js. So let's be quickly search for JSON here. All right, so working with JSON basically means the JavaScript object notation. It's a standard text-based format for representing structured data based on your JavaScript object syntax. It's commonly used for transmitting data in web applications, and you would come across it in quite often. So in this article, we'll give they are talking about explaining more about it. So this is basically what I'm interested in showing you here. So this is basically what a JSON looks like. Let's say you have an application that let's say it's even sort of like a blog, or in this case, let's see what are they using as a use case here. This allows us to get data hierarchy. Let me look a little bit at this. Okay, so this is basically like a list of users. So let's say we want to receive or retrieve data from our backend service, where we want to get a list of clients on a specific application. When the request is made to the server, there has to be a way of channeling that payload to the clients that is requesting for it. Now, JSON, before JSON, there was XML, obviously, which was and it was called, I believe, extensible markup language, where the data is described in between markup tags. But JSON made use of JavaScript objects and made it easy to describe, the data uh, and make it easy for your applications as well to interpret them, because JSON basically became a universal thing that most applications could work with. Most languages was able to integrate the use of JSON into their languages. Obviously some of them via plugins that will be able to convert those data to data that will be primarily understood within whatever language base that is. But what you need to know is JSON is more of a standard that you could use across the web for transmitting data from one point to another. So you could see what it looks like. This is basically a JavaScript object. It has the name and its value attached to it. So by the time this is bundled up, it's going to be added into your get request, or it's your get response, the response to your get request, and then it is going to be sent back to you, or whatever kind of request that you are using to communicate to your server. It's going to package this information, retrieve it from your database, and bundle it up into your response and send it back to you as a payload. So this is basically a standard for using JSON. So let's move over to the next thing that we have to look at here, which is getting started with Express.js. All right, give me a moment so I could share the screen for that.
Hello, Bob. I can't see your screen anymore.
Yeah, yeah, give me a moment. I'm trying to share the next screen.
All right.
All right, see it now.
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. Uh, first of all, I would like to start by saying that whenever you want to get into any framework, any programming language, any new technology generally, the best place to start from is always their documentation. And we are obviously looking at the Express JS platform, right? Platform right now, which is the perfect place for you to get, information about Express JS as a whole. So obviously, Express.js is a framework that is built for Node.js. It is used for backend applications, and it basically makes the use of backend applications very easy and straightforward to use. It reduces the complexities of nodes into reusable key functions and objects. But we'll look more into that right now. So let's get into it. The first step is usually always installing uh, your Express.js to the system. I would share my entire screen shortly. Give me a moment. Let me share my screen so that I could share my.
Bob, it feels like your network is having a field day.
Yeah, it's crazy over here. I don't know if you could see my screen right now.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, I will be with you in a moment. So basically, the first step is obviously going to be installing Express.js. And now this is how we do that. So you start by let me see cd desktop make dir my app. So I'm basically creating a folder for these, and let's go ahead and install Express.js. Now the command for doing that is uh, give me a moment. I think I shared my screen wrongly. share the entire Okay, so I don't know if this is bold enough.
Kindly zoom in a bit.
All right, give me a moment. Let me do that. I hope that is better, Amaka. Is that better, or do I go in a little bit? Okay. Ah,
Hello, Bobby. Are you still on this call? Hello, Bobby. Are you still on the call? Can you hear me? Oh.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I was talking about how to install Express.js. So the moment you've created your directory, of which I'm in the directory right now, the next command that is most important is the npm init. This is you basically just initializing your npm package inside of it. So it's going to initialize an app, and then you are going to give it like an entry point or the package name first of all. Let's just call it my app. All right. Sorry. We can leave it as the same version, description, and then we leave the entry point as index. And I'm basically doing this that by just typing in enter, 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 and then we could use a test command. Let's see the official test command that they're using. Okay, we don't need to put any yet. Uh, we don't need to initialize it to a Git repository. Obviously, if you want to connect it to a Git repo, this is going to be like the place where you put that info. Uh, Keywords, author. If we want to give a name to it, we could just say maybe 300 dev days. And if there is a license type, we could do that. All of that could be done, and we just say yes, and then it's done. Now, the next thing we need to do is basically install the Express application into this particular project area, which is by doing npm install express. I would have to wait a while for this to install, and basically it's done. And by the time we do code, it will basically open up. Okay. I would need to open VS Code right now. That would mean I should stop sharing my screen and share VS Code. I don't know if my screen is visible. It takes a whole lot of time for me to be able to share because of my network speed.
Bobby, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, so can you see the screen I'm sharing properly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So I've basically opened up the application directory that we just created with Express, and if you notice, we have the node, the first of all the package.json, obviously. By the time we open it, we would see that we have the application name, which is my app, the version. We didn't place any description, but we placed in our index.js as the main file or the entry point file that we'll use in going into our application or running our application. We have the author as 300 dev days, and we see that our application dependency is basically Express, and this would obviously install the latest version of Express for you. And that's what is within our packages JSON file. Then we have within our node modules, obviously, all the necessary dependencies that came alongside the Express and that. Okay, so what next? After installing it, we should work on a basic Hello World program so that we could just see basically what it looks like. Now we've created an application, and we would want to create our index.json file where we would basically run our basic node code. We can do that by just simply creating a file, calling it index.js. Now I've gotten this basic code from their platform so that we don't have to start coming up with basic concepts, and then I will save it. So in a short while we'll be talking about what this is, or let's just run over what we have inside of the code. We first of all have us importing the Express package into our file, and then we are declaring our app via the Express object. Now, after doing that, we are also declaring our ports, what we would use as our standard port when we are running the server. A port is like, the connection points that any external application is going to use in communicating with your server. So, and the standard port that Express usually uses is port 3000, and then we could see the app.get. So what this basically means is that when there's a get request sent to this server, this particular get function is going to handle it. Now we talked about the request, and we talked about the response, basically like the life cycle around that. So when a request comes in, this is basically a function that handles that request. So it's going to first of all define the endpoint, which is your root endpoint is usually just the standalone backslash or forward slash rather, and that usually serves as your root endpoint. And then you have your request and then your response, and this is basically going to respond hello world to whatsoever server, whatsoever client that is communicating with this server, and then the port that it is listening on using the app that we've declared, the app constant variable that we've declared. We are attaching a listing function to it, and then we are adding the ports, which is the port 3000 to it. So this is basically going to pass that into the node engine or the express engine from our code here, and then it's going to make it available. So if the port is definitely free on your computer, it is going to be open and wait for a request. So how do we run this? Let's see terminal. So basically do that by running node with index.js, and let's see. And you can see it is successfully running, and it is listening at port 3000. So when we go to localhost with port 3000 and we request for that, we'll see that our response is going to be a hello world uh, text. Let's see if I could share that right now. Sorry for the delays that have been coming with my network. It's making it difficult for me to just, share. So let me share my web browser so that you could see. I don't know if you could see my web. Ah,
Yes, we can see it.
incoming. Can you see my screen now, Amaka? Is it up back? I'm basically sharing right now. Okay.
Yes, I can.
Or it is not showing what I am showing. Okay, so let's just do that here. So by the time we go to localhost 3000, which is we are appending the 3000 ports to the local host, is basically going to take us to the open port where our server is listening from. When we do that, we could see that there is a response of hello world from that server, because that is basically the response from that's the response that the server is giving us. So we've made a get request and it is responding with hello world to us. Um, that is just this is just to give us a basic intro to what Express is going to look like. In our later classes, would go into better details on various aspects of Express.js. I don't know if you have questions. You could raise your questions. I really apologize for the way my network has been acting up today. Amaka, are you there? Hello, Amaka.
I'm here. I can hear you. So your screen is starting.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Amaka, can you hear me? Hello, Amaka. Hello.
Bobby, can you hear me? Hello?
I can't
Bobby,
hear
can
you
you
if you're
hear me?
talking. Okay, I can hear you now. So I said we would be stopping here for now until we'll continue there from Express in our next class. Um, Hopefully by then I would resolve all this. That's if I would be the instructor for the day. Can you hear me clearly still?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So if there are any questions, I believe we could drop them or place them within the group, and we'll pick it up from there. All right. Thank you, guys. Um, Ikechuku, you said you didn't see the response screen. Okay, let me see if I can present it again to you so that you would see before we shut down for the evening. Um, so uh, I am be can anyone see my screen yet? Yeah, so Ikechukwu, I don't know if you can hear me. He said, my question is, assuming we had a HTTP page, would we have sent the that instead of the hello world text? Sure. So what you would do is definitely, send the resource, the HTTP resource, to your client, and then your client is able to process it. So whatsoever resource that is requested for, whether it is a page that was requested for, whether it was a data, there are various functions. You would see more of that as we go deeper into Express. You would be able to pull that specific request and send it, be it a page, be it any form of data at all. Yeah. So your request, your response will be basically what was sent. So even if it is a page, that's how it is sent. Basically, that's how it works. I'm literally sharing my screen. I have no idea why it's not showing. I think my network is really terrible. Yeah. So the Olamide Adeola is saying here you were able to get a response. Yeah, obviously it is supposed to work. Okay, my screen seems to be showing now. So let me just type in the address and so that you could see that that still works. Localhost 3000, and you could see hello world. I think my screen is still static. That's serious. So basically, any more resource that is needed for as regards this, you'd be told on the group. Hello, Amaka. Amaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Amaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, so I think we'll stop here for now. Basically, my screen is not even it's just staying static at this point. All right, thank you guys for joining the class today, and let's stay active and practice into the next one. All right, good night.
Mhm.